If Reginald offers
because I'm fucking LS.
If Reginald offers you a blank check, you'll come and coach TSM next year.
No.
Fix all this shit.
First off, they would never have me because only like 2 of the players I think like me.
I'll put in a good word for you. It's all right. So
God bless. They would. I would not want to deal with it. Like I just don't. I don't think I would want to deal with it. And then obviously Reddit responded, "Well, TSM wouldn't have LS anyway, fucking morons." But anyways, I just don't think it would ever happen.
Okay.
I don't think it would ever happen.
Okay. Is there any final message we want to leave on this interview? It's gone in a dark route. We've killed everyone. No one knows anything. They're all worthless, basically, and even Korean coaches. So, is there some light at the end of the tunnel, LS? Is there some way we can end this?
No. Holy shit, we're doomed.
Is that just it? Is that
Remove the import rule. Maybe then NA will
Okay,
win
there we go.
worlds.
Right. Yeah, that's the secret.
These sorts of players who are willing to sit back like this in general is who Reginald has always recruited and built an environment in TSM around, partly because he was such a vocal presence himself. And so I've always said this, Reginald has repeatedly created an environment of beta male passive-aggressive type players where they will just sit back and take it. They will just be like, oh yeah, I guess it was my fault in that game, even though they couldn't even rationally tell you why, except just to repeat what you've just told them as to why it's wrong. They don't necessarily agree with it, but they just go with it. And then they won't always speak up if something's wrong, because they don't want to make waves, they don't want to rock the boat. Because you know what happens when you rock the boat and you make waves, right? If you're just a role player in TSM, yeah, you magically get attitude problems and you get shanghaied the fuck out of there. That's what happens to you, mate. You get court-martialed, you're out of that motherfucker. Whether you are someone like Expecial who goes on to still be a great player, whether you're whoever it is. Another quote from Reginald. Starting Monday, I will be stepping in as head coach, and I'll be leading discussions within the team in a productive manner. Brackets, I won't be on stage. Now, first of all, we have to address Reginald's personality here. It has to be done because he's going to be the head coach. So this is someone with a history of terrible skills at leading discussions in a productive manner. The amount of video proof of this is overwhelming. This isn't just edited shit. No editor in the world could edit this sort of a thing to be on this level. I mean, this is a guy who literally, there is video evidence of him bullying Expecial to tears. There is video evidence of him bullying Turtle, who is sat right next to him, for like 20 minutes of just abuse over and over and over. To someone else, but about the guy sat next to him. This is a guy who's bullied Dyrus. We've seen this happen multiple times. If Chaos disagreed with him, that was always going to be one of the things setting in place, where then when Chaos did things that were worthy of discipline, Chaos was always going to be on the way out of the team at some point in that time.
So along these lines, it feels like TSM are a team where they don't have a great amount of adaptive intelligence in that sense. It's not that they play someone and immediately they start adapting what they're doing, and if this person's got a strength here, they pull back in there and they push off in another area. It's more like they have to be beaten by something, then take that away, and then now they have some data based on playing them once to then make a plan. And then that's where they get very good, actually. Then you see after even one game in a series, they have marked improvements in terms of how they play and how they approach it. Then we have the fans who think that Schalke guy's tweet is proof that they didn't poach Doublelift. So here we have a tweet from Tim Reichardt, who is the managing director of Schalke 04. And obviously, this is related to the Opset potential trade that I pointed out in the last video. There were Discord screenshots where she was telling that she tried to approach these people and try and get them. So out comes this guy, Tim Reichardt, managing director of Schalke, and he embeds Lena's comment here, where she's talking about my video under the fake news lol. By the way, notice she misspells my alias with 2 O's. Another detail, when Reginald back in the day blacklisted on gamers, he also called Summoning Insight Summoner's Insight. These people are genuinely dense, by the way. Like, they are actually idiots. So here's what this Tim Reichardt says. He says, in 2018, TSM approached us with an offer for Upset, which we declined. Path approached me directly, and I have no reason to believe that Upset was contacted by them. Good luck in the summer split, TSM. Now, if you think that proves that TSM didn't poach Doublelift, and that's not even something to be concerned about, that is a fucking galaxy brain take and a half. First of all, you can't prove something that didn't happen. You can't prove that it didn't happen. And that has been, by the way, a key corollary, look that word up, dumb fox, of my entire point about conflict of interest and poaching, that the inability to prove that these things happened makes them essentially unenforceable, unless someone massively fucks up or you get super lucky, like someone comes forwards and confesses. Now, the fan base of TSM is absolute shit. We all know that. That goes without saying. But in an area that you won't know, it's an open secret behind the scenes in the esports industry that TSM fans will mass downvote and even privately brigade threads that are at all critical of TSM. Thus, the subreddit becomes an echo chamber, and as a result, even mild criticism is treated as extreme, unjustified hate. But here's the problem. I can take the downvotes. They only, for me, motivate me to publish more of my criticisms, because you know what? I've got carte blanche now. You've already downvoted me. You can't downvote me twice on one account. So I'll do what others cannot then, or feel like they cannot, or don't have the conviction to do. I'll be the guy who carries the mast, and I'll go on a war against TSM, and I'll expose the shit that they do, right? So then, how about this? Let their actions towards me and their words about me show who they are as people. Because they can't touch me for 1 second. They'll lie and say that I lie. They'll say my credibility is shot when it's some of the most legit in the history of esports. They'll say I made something up when I didn't. They'll say I don't have information when they cannot know what information I have. They'll claim that the information I have from private sources that I cannot reveal is because I lied about it. But this is the thing. No matter what they do, in the same way as their words will be what you can judge them by, I'll never lie about TSM. I'll never lie about how good their players are. And I'll never do it on the basis that I dislike the org intensely again. That's who I am, and that's the standard I hold myself to. And as you've already heard, the only standards TSM has is double standards, fittingly.
It's a lot has changed, and like I do hope they do some of these things, but it was when they were on top and the way that they were presenting themselves publicly in NA, and then their actions and, you know, even their gross, honestly, like reality TV content where like Reggie's like running around shouting at people until they cry. It was just like disgusting to watch. Like it was like the behavior was just indefensible, I think. And imagine if that kind of content was sponsored today, it'd be ridiculous.
I think a lot of people, I think you've done some dumb shit when you were in your early 20s. I've definitely done dumb shit. Unfortunately for me and Andy and somewhat you, our dumb shit that we did in our early 20s is recorded and presented to the internet for the masses to see.
Sure. And like I said, all credit to Reggie. He's built like a great brand and, you know, a great team. And like you said, unfortunately, there was stuff on camera that you can't take back now. But I do think he's changed a lot as a human being from knowing him now and living in Los Angeles. You know, it's a very different thing. So I think the TSM thing, it's funny and like, because we can banter and talk shit and go back in history, but I do think that they're a well-run org for the most part these days, and it's just a matter of stabilizing. I think that it's good for them in a lot of ways as a team that they're not on top anymore, because they actually have to fix a lot of the flaws that they've had over many years that they got away with before. Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to help. I think it's going to help the team and the brand grow into something that's actually, you know, really solid and sustainable for the future.
So Bjergsen played in the big series against the big name teams, TF and Zilean just all the time, because seemingly, I mean, his TF is good, and stuff with globals, and especially Zilean, they have no clue how to play against that in NA. Like, you would think it was solo queue and people have never played the champion or something. Like, half those teams probably just fucking banned that in their next solo queue game. It was disgusting the way they played against his Zilean. And the idea that he wasn't just constantly smashed in lane in CS while playing that in matchups, it just makes me look down on the jungle mid combos in the rest of the region. So other than, like, I think one game on Syndra, which was one of the most meta champions and is a Bjergsen fucking signature champion, 9 out of his 15 wins in the playoffs were on TF or Zilean. So this was never going to work at Worlds. Like, TF can work, not the way they fucking play it. Zilean was never going to work, by the way. So the idea that, like, they were going to go to Worlds, listen, boy, Fnatic, so Europe, Korea, Genji, LG, these teams don't give a fuck about your Zilean. They don't give a fuck about your TF Zilean. You think they don't in their regions play killers on those champions? You think they don't play the other sides of the matchups and the counters? You're out of your mind. Like, Nemesis isn't a good mid laner right now. Bjergsen made him look half fucking decent though, didn't he? Also, I'll say this. He's one of those guys where, in my opinion, sometimes he thinks he's come to an epiphany, or he's had, I've observed something, I've realized something about the game. You know that saying that people sometimes have, that like, oh, the advice you give to others is actually like secretly, the reason you're giving it to them is because you know it's advice that you should apply, but you haven't really thought to apply it, or you can't apply it. Well, he once said years and years ago, some shit, I think it was when he was in CLG still, like, you should turn the nameplates off and just play against those champions. Brother, you're the only person in the fucking world who doesn't in any way play like that's the case. You play like, forget the nameplates being off. You play like the nameplate's this big and says, Uzi eye, deft on your screen. You're like that fucking sweating pepper frog meme, like, oh God. Like, it's like this guy goes in with a fucking butthole that could crush a thing of coal into a fucking diamond. Although, ironically, he doesn't create diamonds under pressure, does he? Fucking hell. He just bursts his own pipes, doesn't he? I guess that's more reckless in the waterworks.
I actually think like it's one of the huge problems of like Korean imports going over, because in Korea, like even in solo queue, when you do the wrong thing, people will punish you. Like if you play the matchup the wrong way, like over course of time, like people will punish you over and over again. And definitely in professional play, if you play a certain way that's really punishable, or that isn't like the correct or the good way of playing, you'll get punished. So you learn by playing a lot and getting punished. And like when you do a bad thing, you get a negative response to it. But in NA, like you can play a certain way in solo queue, and even when it's bad, like you keep winning over and over again. And also in like NA, like as an LCS, like infamously TSM does really well in NA, and they do bad internationally because they do one thing over and over again. Okay. And then you don't get a negative response to it, so you feel like you're doing something right. And so whenever these imports go to other regions and they do really well, and then they feel like, oh, I'm doing something right, like I'm not getting a negative response, so I'm just doing right and I'm winning. And then they come back to Korea and then they're like, what the fuck just happened? Like I've been winning and winning, like I've been getting better. Because in Korea, the only way to like win is to constantly get better, like, and not get the negative like response.
And this isn't a personal thing or anything with the TSM stuff, but no.
I mean, that was going to be my joke when he said, you know, TSM do well in NA, then go international. It's like, well, yeah, they had user coach.
Events come and go, fame rises and then falls away. You have a job, you lose a job. You do one thing, you have to move on to another. But one of the cool things about my career is I have my own support network who's always got my back. So I always know I can rely on support to do the work I want to do and talk the way I want to talk, and not have to follow certain rules that others arbitrarily have to follow. And that support group is, of course, called the Skrilluminati, my Patreon community. This video and all the others on my channel was kindly supported by Matt Pugnatio Rajcula, Frisky, Ahmed Hadjou, Tobias Bernasconi, Torin, Tosh, Jensen Goh, Animosity, and you know it, always my main man Jerky's minion, rocking with me, ride or die. Would you like to suggest a topic or a guest for a future episode of Reflections or a talk show? Do you want teasers? Find out who the upcoming guests are. Maybe you want to ask me a question for my video AMA, where I tend to go quite in depth, or perhaps you want to take part in one of those really long donated discussions where we talk about whatever you're into in esports. Well, if any of those perks or any of the others catch your fancy, join the Skrilluminati today via the Patreon link in the description box, where down below.